The evening sun painted the sky in soft gold when Maya returned home from work, her heels clicking lightly against the marble floor. She dropped her handbag on the couch, ready for a quiet night alone. Her life had finally settled into peace after the storm of her breakup with Adrian, 2 years of chaos, deceit, and heartbreak. She had spent months piecing herself back together, turning her pain into purpose. The days were no longer heavy, and her reflection no longer carried the ache of what was lost. Just as she poured herself a cup of tea, her doorbell rang. On the doormat lay a cream-colored envelope sealed with gold wax. Elegant cursive letters spelled out her name. She frowned, turning it in her hands. It was thick, expensive, clearly meant to impress. Inside was a wedding invitation, Adrian's wedding. Her heart gave a sudden jolt. For a moment, the room felt smaller. Her eyes scanned the glossy card. Adrian and Lana cordially invite you to celebrate their wedding. The date was next weekend. A short, handwritten note on the side made her stomach twist. Hope you can make it. It would mean a lot to see you happy for me. She sat down slowly, the letter trembling slightly in her hands. After all these months, why now? Why would he invite her? Adrian was never one for kindness. Everything he did carried a purpose. Memories flickered in her mind like sharp shards of glass. His smirk when he lied, his calculated charm, the way he had belittled her under the guise of honesty. He hadn't changed. He was playing another game. Maya's phone buzzed with a message from her best friend, Nisha. Did you get his invitation? I swear, he's trying to humiliate you. Don't go. Maya stared at the screen. Nisha was probably right. Adrian thrived on control. He would love to see her uncomfortable, to gloat about moving on first, about having the perfect life with someone new. But deep inside, something shifted. A calm defiance that had been growing ever since she'd walked away from him. She thought of all the nights she cried herself to sleep, of all the times she had swallowed her pride just to keep the peace, of the day she finally chose herself over him. Going to his wedding wouldn't be weakness, it would be closure. She stood up, setting the invitation on the table. The sunlight caught the gold lettering, making it shimmer like temptation. You want me there, Adrian, she murmured. Then I'll come. But not the way you expect. Over the next few days, Maya moved through her life with quiet determination. She picked a gown, deep emerald satin that hugged her form, elegant yet powerful. Her hair would be swept back, her makeup soft but striking. Every detail was deliberate, not for him, but for herself, to remind the woman in the mirror that she had risen from the ashes with grace. On the night before the wedding, she stood before her reflection and studied the calm in her own eyes. There was no anger left, no desire for revenge. Only peace. The kind that comes from surviving what was meant to break you. She whispered to her reflection, you're not going there for him. You're going there for you. Outside, the wind rustled softly against her window, carrying away the last traces of doubt. For the first time in years, Maya slept soundly, knowing that when she faced Adrian again, she would no longer be the woman he once controlled. She would be the storm he never saw coming. The wedding venue shimmered under strings of fairy lights, the kind Adrian always loved, grand, expensive, and meant to impress. Luxury cars lined the driveway, and soft classical music drifted through the air as Maya stepped out of her cab. She paused for a moment, taking in the sight before her. The marble staircase leading to the ballroom was covered in white roses. And at the entrance stood a large golden sign, "Welcome to the wedding of Adrian and Lana." She adjusted her emerald gown, the silk catching the light as she walked with calm confidence. Heads turned almost instantly. Whispers followed, some shocked, some amused. Everyone knew who she was. The ex. The one who had once been destined to stand where the bride was now standing. Maya caught a few lingering stares but didn't flinch. She had expected this. Inside, the ballroom was everything Adrian had ever wanted. Lavish chandeliers, an orchestra playing softly, and people he wanted to impress more than he wanted to love. Maya scanned the crowd, her eyes landing on Adrian near the bar, laughing loudly among his friends. He spotted her before she could look away. His laughter froze for a split second, then a smug smile stretched across his face. He excused himself and walked over, confidence dripping from every step. Well, he said, voice smooth and mocking. I didn't actually think you'd come. Maya smiled politely, her tone calm. You invited me. It would have been rude not to. He chuckled, tilting his head as if examining her. You look good. Better than I expected, honestly. She met his gaze without blinking. Thank you. You too. Congratulations, by the way. The words seemed to catch him off guard. He wanted her to sound bitter, envious, broken, but her poise unsettled him. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. I'm glad you could come and see what real happiness looks like. Her lips curved in a faint smile. I hope you've finally found it, Adrian. For your sake. He smirked but said nothing. Around them, guests pretended not to listen, though their eyes flickered curiously between the two. Adrian turned toward the stage where his fiancée, Lana, stood surrounded by photographers. She was young, stunning, and draped in diamonds, everything Adrian thought screamed success. Come, he said, motioning toward her. You should meet her. Maya hesitated, then nodded. Lana turned as they approached, her smile faltering slightly when she saw Maya. Oh, so you're Maya, she said in a sweet tone that couldn't hide the edge underneath. Adrian has told me stories. I'm sure he has, Maya replied softly, her eyes kind but unreadable. You look beautiful, Lana. Truly. Thank you, Lana said, though her hand tightened around Adrian's arm. I suppose it's nice that you're here. Not many people are brave enough to attend their ex's wedding. Maya's smile never wavered. Closure is a beautiful thing. Adrian laughed under his breath, sensing Lana's discomfort and enjoying it. As the ceremony began, Maya found her seat near the back, unnoticed by most, but her calm presence seemed to fill the room. Adrian kept glancing her way, his grin faltering each time he caught her serene gaze. When dinner was served, he stood for a toast, raising his glass dramatically. I'd like to make a special mention tonight, he announced, voice echoing through the hall. To someone who taught me valuable lessons about love, about what I don't want in life. A few guests chuckled. The insult hung in the air like smoke. Maya's friend Nisha, sitting beside her, stiffened in outrage, but Maya remained composed. She lifted her glass slightly, her expression calm, her smile effortless. The clinking of glasses echoed, but beneath the surface, the atmosphere shifted. Adrian thought he had won, thought he had successfully humiliated her in front of everyone. But he couldn't see the quiet storm behind her stillness, the unshakable grace that made every whisper about her turn from pity to admiration. As the music swelled again and laughter filled the room, Maya leaned back in her chair, her heart steady. She knew the moment to respond would come. Soon. But not with anger, not with revenge. Something far more powerful was about to unfold. The clinking of glasses faded, replaced by a brief, uneasy silence that stretched too long to be comfortable. Adrian grinned, basking in the laughter his cruel toast had provoked. He expected Maya to look embarrassed, to shrink under the weight of old wounds reopened in public. But she didn't. She simply smiled, lifted her champagne flute with elegance, and took a slow sip, her eyes never leaving his. The quiet confidence in her gaze made him falter for a heartbeat. Then, before he could recover, Maya rose from her chair. Her emerald gown shimmered as she moved through the crowd, every eye following her. She didn't hurry, didn't flinch. Her steps were steady, graceful, deliberate. When she reached the stage, Adrian's smirk wavered. She took the microphone from the MC with a soft smile that didn't betray an ounce of emotion. Thank you, Adrian, she said, her voice calm but commanding enough to silence the room. That was quite a speech. I didn't plan to say anything tonight, but since you've brought me up, it seems only fair I return the kindness. A ripple of whispers moved through the guests. Adrian's jaw tightened, though he tried to keep his easy smile in place. Lana, standing nearby, looked between them uncertainly. Maya turned to face the crowd, her expression serene. I want to start by congratulating the happy couple. You both look radiant together. It takes courage to commit your lives to one another, and I truly wish you the best. Polite applause followed. She waited for it to fade, then continued, her tone soft but edged with truth. Adrian and I shared a chapter once, a chapter that taught me more about love and strength than I ever thought possible. I used to think love was about being chosen, about being someone's favorite story. But I've learned it's about something deeper. It's about who stands by you when no one's watching, who lifts you up when you're falling apart. Her words hung heavy in the air. People began to listen, really listen. Maya's gaze shifted toward Adrian, who now looked uncomfortable, his smile forced. When that chapter ended, she went on, I was broken. I won't lie about that. But sometimes life has a way of showing you that heartbreak isn't punishment, it's redirection. It leads you to rediscover your own worth. Lana blinked, glancing at Adrian with suspicion, as though she suddenly wondered what kind of man she had just married. The guests exchanged curious looks. Maya smiled gently. So, to the man who taught me that lesson, thank you. Not for the pain, but for the freedom it brought. Because losing you meant finding myself. The room went completely silent. Adrian's hand tightened around his glass. His carefully constructed image, charming, in control, victorious, began to crumble in front of everyone. Maya handed the microphone back to the MC and raised her glass one last time. Here's to love that heals, not hurts. To truth, to growth, and to knowing when to walk away. Then she clinked her glass softly against the air and took a sip. The applause that followed wasn't loud or chaotic. It was slow, building, heartfelt. Even those who had laughed earlier now looked ashamed. Some guests nodded at her with respect, others murmured quiet praise. Adrian stood frozen, his expression unreadable. Lana stepped back slightly from him, her smile fading completely. Whatever illusion he had built about himself, successful, desired, untouchable, had been shattered by a few simple, honest words. Maya descended from the stage with unhurried grace. As she passed Adrian, she paused just long enough to meet his eyes. You invited me to see you happy, she said softly, so only he could hear. But I've never felt more free. Then she walked away, leaving him standing there under the glittering lights, surrounded by whispers and stares. For the first time, it was Adrian who felt small. The man who once prided himself on control had none left. Maya returned to her seat beside Nisha, who whispered, awestruck, you just destroyed him. Maya smiled faintly. No, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just told the truth. And in that moment, everyone in the room knew, the humiliation he had planned for her had turned into his own undoing. The music played faintly in the background, but the air inside the ballroom was heavy with tension. Conversations had turned into murmurs, and laughter was replaced by awkward silence. Adrian stood frozen at the front, his hand gripping the edge of the table as if it were the only thing holding him upright. Lana had already pulled away from him, confusion and anger flashing in her eyes. The perfect wedding he had orchestrated, the grand showcase of his power and pride, was slipping through his fingers, piece by piece. Maya didn't look back. Her heels clicked softly across the marble floor as she made her way toward the exit, her head held high. Every step she took echoed louder than the music, as if the entire room could feel her power in that quiet departure. Guests watched her go, some whispering her name, others simply staring in stunned admiration. Adrian had wanted to humiliate her, but she had turned his stage into her victory. Outside, the cool night air greeted her like an old friend. The wind carried the faint scent of roses from the garden, washing away the tension that had clung to her shoulders. She exhaled deeply, a smile tugging at her lips, not of triumph, but of peace. For the first time in years, she felt completely free. The weight of the past, the echoes of pain, the shadows of regret, they all fell away with every breath she took. Moments later, Nisha rushed out behind her, her heels clattering against the stone steps. Maya, she called, slightly breathless. Oh my God, that was, wow. You should have seen their faces. He looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Maya turned, her smile soft. That wasn't the goal, she said quietly. He already did that to himself. Nisha laughed, shaking her head in disbelief. Still, that was legendary. You walked in there like a storm and walked out like peace. Maya chuckled, the sound light and genuine. Funny how things work out. I thought going there would bring closure, but it turns out I didn't need it. I'd already moved on. She looked up at the night sky, the stars glowing faintly above the hotel's golden lights. I guess sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, and knowing you no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Behind them, the sound of hurried footsteps broke the calm. Adrian appeared in the doorway, his suit slightly undone, his expression desperate. Maya, wait, he called. The confidence that once defined his voice was gone, replaced by unease. Can we talk, please? Nisha shot him a glare, but Maya raised a hand, stopping her. She turned slowly to face him. There's nothing left to talk about, Adrian, she said, her voice even, almost kind. He stepped closer, eyes darting nervously. You didn't have to do that in there. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Her brows lifted slightly. Did I, or did you do that to yourself? She asked. You invited me hoping I'd still be broken. But the truth is, you don't have that power anymore. For a moment, he said nothing. His mouth opened, then closed again, as if searching for a defense that wouldn't come. The arrogance, the smug charm, gone. All that remained was a man who realized too late that the woman he'd once tried to control now stood far beyond his reach. I did love you, once, he muttered finally, his voice small. Maya nodded. Maybe you did, but love without respect isn't love, it's possession. She gave him one last, calm look. I hope one day you understand the difference. Then she turned away, walking down the steps where a car waited. Nisha followed her, glancing back once to see Adrian still standing under the lights, looking lost in the ruins of his own pride. As the car pulled away, Maya looked out the window at the passing city lights. Her reflection in the glass looked strong, unshaken. She smiled to herself, whispering softly, You invited me to be humiliated, Adrian, but in the end, I became the lesson. The music from the ballroom grew faint until it disappeared completely. Inside, the guests talked in hushed tones, retelling what they had witnessed. The woman who walked in as the ex and left as the embodiment of dignity. And in that quiet aftermath, the man who once thrived on control was left standing alone, realizing the truth. She didn't just walk out of his wedding, she walked out of his world forever.